Hey y'all, Austin here with Outer World Media. Welcome back to another book review. I'm going to start off by saying we got the Lord of the Rings mug. You know what that means, guys. We are talking about a fantasy book today, guys. We are talking about a book that, in all honesty, it's been on my TBR since it came out back in 2021. I want to give props where props are due. I want to thank Mike's Book Reviews for putting this book on my radar and just kind of other books as well. I'll group everything in one. Thank you, Mike, for putting all these different books on my radar and extending my TBR list, but also emptying my wallet out at the same time. But guys, today I'm talking about a book that, rightfully so, is no longer a self-published book. It is a traditional published book now, and it is one that I am surprised it took this long for, a big publisher to pick it up. I don't really have room to talk though. I didn't get to the book till the last couple weeks that we've had, but I'm talking about Ryan Cahill's "Of Blood and Fire," guys. Book number one in the Bound and the Broken series. This, in all honesty, again, was starting out as a self-published series by Ryan. He lives over in Ireland. This book, or this series, I should say, has gotten very, very big over the last few years thanks to, and I'm going to set this right here, guys, so it's kind of in the background. Thanks to BookTube and just the community of everybody that loved, your traditional fantasy. That being said, I would not, kind of getting into it, guys. Let me start off there. Let me tell you what is this book about. This book is about three young lads who are kind of mixed up with a group of people that we're not too sure about. This is essentially kind of getting into it. They end up in this town where they are hanging out in this tavern, and in this tavern, they run across these few gentlemen who they mysteriously disappear from the tavern. One of them follows them to find them because they left their coat behind, and in the process ends up on the other side of the empire. And it's about them having to figure out what are they gonna do. I'm leaving this very, very broad as far as what this book is about because, in all honesty, I didn't really know what it was about going into it, and I don't want to give anything away. Everybody that I saw talk about this book compared it to traditional fantasy. I am not your standard fantasy reader by any means. I have not. I mean, I've read Lord of the Rings. I've read like the first 3 or 4 Wheel of Time books. I have not read any of the Shannara series. I have not read, Tad Williams. I've read the first book in the Game of Thrones series, but again, just not somebody who traditionally reads fantasy. But this book had my interest piqued, so I picked it up. And what I will say going into just my review of the book, again, I'm leaving it very, very broad. I would not say this is a traditional fantasy book, in all honesty. And the reason I say that is because, yes, there are some, and they talked about this because I did go to the local signing in South Lake where I got to meet Mike as well as Ryan. And they talked about cliches. And I think they summed it up best. A cliche, you read it because you're familiar with it. You're comfortable with it. If you are having a bad day, most people, put on a show or a movie or listen to music, something you're familiar with, kind of calming, if you will. And this, while this does have some of that in there, does not follow your standard, in my opinion, traditional fantasy. This is honestly a book that I'm not sure what I would label it as far as that goes. I mean, it's obviously a mix of some traditional fantasy, but it feels like modern fantasy. Again, he changed it just enough that it kept me just entertained the whole time. And what I mean by that is, these books, at least from what I've understood from watching some people, talking about traditional fantasy, because again, I'm just kind of delving into it. They talk about how it's a slow burn at the beginning. And while this does have a setup to the story, obviously, as any book does, there was not a moment, not a sentence, not a word that felt like, oh, we really have to, can we hurry this up? No, even Ryan talking about a part in the book, going over these young men who have to go into this forest to prove themselves to become men, even when explaining the little bit of the history and all that. Not a single second of it I was like, can we get to the action? No, it was, I was just enthralled with the book. I could not put it down. I was reading this thing, as much as I could wherever I was. And I even told Ryan this at the signing, because he talked about, having to change his writing schedule around after he had his kid. And I explained to him, yeah, I have a daughter. She's going to be one here in the next week or two. And I have to read around her schedule. And he chuckled and he laughed, because he said, yeah, they don't take reading or writing into account, and they don't. But that made me love this book even more, because when I was zoned in, which was the entire time, I didn't want to stop. It'd be 1 o'clock in the morning. I keep want to read. I want to keep reading the book. Sorry, English is a little hard. But again, this is just, it's an awesome book. It really, really is. This is one, as soon as I finished it, I wanted to pick up book two, which I have book two and book three right here. But I'm trying to hold off because I don't want to burn out on this series. But again, guys, it's so good. It really is. If you have Amazon Prime, if you have, Kindle Unlimited, it's on there. You can borrow it if you have Prime for free. If you have Kindle Unlimited, I think it's on there as well. This is a book that I highly, highly recommend. I was texting Faceless the other day, aka Jay, and he was asking how the book signing went and whatnot, and asked how I liked the book. And I told him, I said, if I could give this book, and I normally rate on a 5-star scale, I said if I could give this book a 6-star rating, I would. And I've debated on it. I'm like, why can't I'm going to give this, I typically rate books 1 to 5 stars. I'm giving this a 6-star review. This is an amazing book. This really is. This is one that I'm kicking myself in the butt that it took me so long to read it, because I want the independent cover to go with my other books. But again, it's one of those, if you're hesitant to get into the genre, or if you're kind of interested, this, in all honesty, guys, this is a great book. I mean, there's dragons, there's elves, there's dwarves, there's humans, there's all kinds of people. There's an evil empire, you know. And that's another thing about this too. Now that I'm thinking about it, everybody talks about Game of Thrones and Grimdark and how nobody's safe. And I will tell you this: in this book, there are people that are not safe. Don't get attached to any character, because after what happened in the first book, I have a feeling we might lose some people along the way. And it kind of worries me, because I've grown really attached to these characters, even after one book. Like I said, there's just, in the ending, the way he sets up the ending of this huge kind of mystery. And again, it felt like, okay, what is going to happen from here? Who can we not trust? And if I had to, and I don't even want to say it's a nitpick, just the way the book ended was perfect, but at the same time it left me longing for more. So if I was somebody who read this book and the second book hadn't come out yet, I'd be very, very antsy and just upset, because I'm like, I want to read the next book and I have it, but I'm having to, again, restrain myself from picking it up, because I have prior engagements that I have agreed to for the channel, that I can't read the next book, because I know if I read the next book, I'm probably going to solely focus on that. But again, guys, Of Blood and Fire is a book that I highly, highly recommend. Go give it a shot. Read it. Again, I'm not doing this book justice and doing this review. Again, I typically try to leave, the summary of the book very, very broad, so I don't go into too many details, names, places, this and that. Again, just because I want you to experience the book like I did. But again, guys, like I said, this is one, if you're even somewhat interested in maybe getting into the genre or putting your toe in the water to see, pick this book up. This is an amazing book. This is so far my highest rated book of the year, as far as that goes. So like I said, guys, A Blood and Fire, pick it up at your local Barnes and Nobles, order it on Amazon, eBay, wherever you can get your hands on it. Read this book. It is freaking awesome. As always, thank y'all.